Hey everyone, it's Mistress Roz.
Hey, it's Dame Dot, and who's our guest today?
Hi, I'm Baron Carl. I am the Kingdom Release Deputy.
Wonderful. And I'm just going to jump right into it and say I'm excited that you're here because this office confuses me. And so I have a lot of questions, and I think it's important information for the populace to get because it does involve them. This is one office that no matter who you are, it potentially applies to you. So I'm really glad that you're here. First, I want to start off with what is your office, and briefly, what is your office? Because we'll get into the nitty gritty of it. But what is your office and how long have you been doing it?
I took the office over, I believe, in January of 2021. But I had been working with our previous, God, I can't remember his SCA name, but anyway, Scott. But I've been working with him for about 6 months. He had put out a notice requesting a replacement deputy, and I got the job, I think, because I was the only one that applied.
Sometimes that's how it works.
Yeah, it is. This office actually is one of the least, I would have to say, the least known offices. People just don't think about it. But from a legal standpoint, there are times when I'm more important than the Seneschal.
And that's why I think it's important that we do this. And we'll get into that a little bit. And so well, go ahead, Ross, because
Well, I was going to say, so from a legal standpoint, you're saying it's very important. So why do we need release codes?
Okay, well, the quick and easy answer is to protect the SCA from possible liability associated with personal information release and copyright infringement. And that's very important because people don't realize that any and everything that you fix in a way, like writing something down on a piece of paper, is now copyrighted under you. You don't have to go fill out a form. Just the fact that you put your poem on a piece of paper, bingo, it is now copyrighted. So,
and see, we have so many questions.
I know. Go Dot.
Well, I was going to say, and this is not only a legal thing, but society driven too, correct?
Yes, this is for society.org USA. Other society organizations like Australia or Drachenwald may or may not have release codes. I don't know, but our release codes are not good in their countries. You have to go by their rules because it's their laws. So that's the way it goes. I think even I think Canada has different release codes, so we don't administer those. But all I do is administer the Kingdom codes for Glenavon. So if somebody goes to Ansteora and they want to publish an article in the Ansteorian newsletter, that's fine. They just say, hey, I have a release code here in the Kingdom of Meridies, and my release code number is, GA 1002 PI. That's my personal information, and GA 1003 CR is my creative work release codes. And that publisher would, in all likelihood, contact me and say, hey, are these valid release codes? And I'd go back and say, well, or no, they aren't. They had the wrong numbers, but I have the correct numbers. Here's your correct release code numbers. Other kingdoms do it differently. I think Atlantia, from what I heard, actually has a spreadsheet published on their kingdom webpage that lists all the release codes and all the people. So they put that out, but of course there's no personal information on it. It's like,
right.
Dame Dot, her release codes are such and such. So, but anyway, we do.
You mentioned so you mentioned two types there.
Yes.
What are the different types of release codes that you can get?
Good questions. Originally, we started out with just personal information, and then that blossomed into a model release, a photographer release, and a creative work release. Personal information includes, but is not limited to, your legal name, your physical and mailing address, your personal phone number, and your personal email, not the kingdom or office email that you have, and it's being used to contact you, such as Seneschal at Small Gray Bear, or in my case, release deputy at glenaubin.net. So that's not personal information. That is set up. And the reason
So
I say legal name is, I'm sorry, the reason I say legal name is because Mistress Roz, I don't know what your legal name is. I only know you as Mistress Roz. And you may not want anybody else to know your legal name. Because if I have your legal name, I'm a good internet explorer. I'll find out all kinds of things about you.
So what I was going to say was the like if you look at the back of the ambassador, if you have an office there with a phone number, that would count as you've got to have a release code to
You
be
got to
listed
have a
there.
release code for all of that. So,
And
if it's your email, your personal phone number, your personal email. Again, if
Right.
it's SB, Seneschal at SBN, no, you don't need that. But if you got your
and that
personal phone number there, yeah.
And that brings us to something where it could, not only is it pictures or models and all that creative stuff, but if you're running an event and you're doing a flyer that goes in the newsletter, not only, you have to have correct me if I'm wrong, because this is one of those things that I'm learning about, but the Seneschal has to have one, but then also the Autocrat and Feastocrat if they're listed, and if you're on there for doing something, a luncheon, and it has any of that, you're supposed to, is that correct?
Well, you mentioned the Seneschal. Usually the Seneschal submits that Kingdom event form and all that good stuff. And local groups may or may not put their Seneschal on the flyer, but definitely the Autocrat, because they have contact information. Definitely the Feastocrat, they have contact information. Definitely the Equestrian contact, because I'm sure they have contact information. So if you have any of those kinds of activities going on, hey, we're going to have a tournament of champions, and the knight running it is going to be Sir Fergus, and his contact information is bingo. You have to have a release code from Sir Fergus that says it's okay if you put his email address on or his phone number. I used to remember flyers in Meridias that had your mailing address. Pretty much we don't do that anymore because, snail mail takes forever to get to you. So yes, but anything that you see on the flyer that has names, phone numbers, and legal names, yeah, you need to find a release code for those people.
And there's a whole process to turning in these flyers, and you're part of that checklist that checks off to make sure and that they have the code. And then if they don't, how does all of that work? You getting the codes? I mean, they fill out how does somebody get a code if they don't have a code? Let's
Well, okay, I'll drop down to that one.
Oh, I never go in order. I'm
Well,
just
no,
letting you
that's
know.
good,
This is not
but I
keeping
am-
you on your toes, Carl.
yeah, but I am going to say that anyone who tends to publish any of the items mentioned above, which was, a creative work, a photograph that you took of somebody, or a photograph of somebody that was taken, or your personal information, needs to have a release code. If it's going to be on any official SCA, and I want to emphasize that official SCA electronic media or any SCA printed medium, you need a release code. You get those by going to the release deputy's webpage. Get on to the Kingdom webpage, go to the little tab that says officers. All the officers pop up in a drop down menu. Go all the way to the bottom where it says web minister. When you get your mouse over the web minister, the release deputy tab pops up on the right. Click on that. It takes you directly to my web page. And that gets you the information you need to go to the proper section in the files and get the correct release code form and instructions. We have an FAQ, we have the release forms, we have instructions themselves, and have tons of fun. If you have problems, send an email to the release.deputy.glenaubin.email, and I will respond. I need to remind people that you have to contact me through that official email. I don't accept emails on my personal email accounts. I do not accept emails or messages via my Facebook Messenger account, and you don't call me. We have to keep records of what we're doing, and one of the easiest ways is it's an email. So plus the kingdom doesn't pay for my phone bill or my Facebook time. So there you go.
So
Right.
on that note, I have a quick question. I want to jump in, Dot. So if someone thinks they have one but can't find one, they need to send you an email, correct? Or is
Yes,
there another
send me-
place, another way to check
Nope.
for the?
No, we do not publish the release codes for the general public. They're supposed to be available for all the web ministers in the kingdom, with the understanding that they're not supposed to release that to anybody. It's for them
So
to
that
check.
would be, our web minister and, since you mentioned print media, also the chronicler. So that's who has access to these codes.
And they should, but that link has somehow been broken. And we're trying to get it fixed again so that I can put the release code spreadsheet somewhere that somebody, so the chroniclers and the web ministers can get to them, and the web sheet will be frozen. You won't be able to make any changes
Right, you,
to it,
right.
and you won't be able
You
to
would have
download it.
access to do changing. They would have viewing privileges or
Like a view
whatever.
only
And they
in
would not
Google Sheets.
Yeah, and they would not have download privileges. It's on the web page. That's where it stays. You can't take your personal copy. Sorry.
Right,
And all it's going to have on it anyway, available for anyone to see, is hi, here's the release codes, here's their name, and the reason we're not going to let you download is because it's got to have the legal name on it too. So
right. And this wasn't, this just popped in as we're talking. Is it a good idea to go ahead and get all of the codes?
Wait.
that's fine. I mean,
Like,
it's
like
the
your
piece of
personal
paper.
information one, your creative content one, your model one. Is it a good idea to request one as a just in case? And this is something I don't know, or would you prefer?
That is strictly up to the individual. I like to jump back up to one of the top questions and cover what kinds we have. We do have the personal information. And I'd like to mention that from the SCA Web Ministers Handbooks, photographs, videos, artworks that depict individuals in a portrait style shall not be published unless the web minister has a release on file from the person or people pictured. An example would be a picture of you, Dame Dot, and Mistress Roz with little or no background, and a caption of, say, Mistress Roz and Dame Dot sharing a joke at K&S. If that picture has been cropped down to just you two, then it's portrait style. Another thing is that they would need a model release from you two, and whoever took the picture has to submit a photographer's release form because they're allowing you to publish that. As for creative work, it's a poem, and let's say Mistress Roz was holding up a poem that she wrote, and you took a picture of that with the two of you, and you're laughing about it. That's fine, but hey, that poem in that picture, creative work, because it's copyrighted. I'd like to mention something from the U.S. Copyright official webpage. Copyright is a type of intellectual property that protects original works of authorship as soon as the author fixes the work in a tangible form. In copyright law, there are a lot of different types of works, and we've mentioned just some of them. But copyright is originality and fixation. It has to be an original work, and the Supreme Court has ruled on that. It doesn't, you don't have to think really deep. It doesn't have to be super religious. I wrote a poem, wrote it down on a piece of paper. It's now copyrighted. Why? Because it was an original work. I didn't copy it from somebody else. And, normally if you do copy it from somebody else, you put a notation in there that says, hey, reference to two. And it's fixed. As soon as it comes out on any medium that is permanent, it's fixed. So this Zoom meeting, as soon as it's recorded and done and you keep it, it's a copyrighted piece of material. So you need to, a lot of people don't realize that, but everyone is a copyright owner in some way or shape. There's just stuff you have that you've done that makes you a copyright holder, and most people don't care. But we're talking about specific instances where the SAA has determined that we need protection via release codes for specific things in order to protect us from that liability from personal information being released. Because we all know about people that get doxxed all the time. And then, all those other things that have copyright protection. So now that I've popped through that, would you go back to your question? I forgot. Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
that feels like a lot, Carl. It really does. So do you have a deputy or two that helps you with this?
Right now, the deputy does not have a deputy. When Scott was doing this, he didn't have a deputy either. It's really not a lot of work. The only time that you really need somebody is when you're looking for a replacement deputy. And I was going to publish something in July looking for a replacement deputy because it's been 2 years, and it's time to give somebody else a shot at this lovely job.
Well,
So,
and even though,
I guess this is the first instance of people now knowing that I'm looking for a replacement deputy.
well, there you
Ta-da!
go. We're breaking news. And it might,
Yeah.
and you might have it down to an art where it doesn't seem like it's a lot of work, but with the link not working, I would imagine that the chronicler and the web minister, whenever they're getting ready for that next issue, they have to run down and make sure that everything's there and everything. So there's got to be some great communication between y'all to make sure that all of these codes are up in all of the stuff. So give yourself
Yeah,
a little
and again-
credit. I do think it's a
Well,
lot.
It does. Yeah. I mean,
And
I mean,
you were correct. Should you get a release code anyway? Well, I don't know. It's up to you. If you think you're going to be in a photograph, you're going to make a photograph, or somebody might want your personal information. Sure, it's just forms. You fill them out. I stick them into the database. We're up to 138 release codes now, and I'm sorry, 1,038 release codes.
I was going to say 138
Oh, I
seemed a
thought-
little
yeah,
low. I
I
was
was
like,
like,
well,
that's not a
what's
lot.
happening? Is it only me putting stuff out there?
well,
Yes,
so
yes,
based
it's
on
only
what you're
you.
So based on what you're saying, Carl, you're like, well, who should get a release code? We're talking about the chronicler stuff, like the ambassador. So what about people who are entering Crown List? Because I know that the winners have to immediately almost get a release code if they don't already have one, correct?
Yes, they need specifically their personal information release code because their names are going to be published. Now, as to photograph and model and all that other good stuff, it depends on what kind of picture you're taking. If you remember, we referenced portrait style. Again,
Right.
if the new heirs are up there and there's nobody else in that photo but them, they need model release codes.
Right, but if
they're
it's a picture of court and
Yeah, nope.
everybody's there, then that's not a portrait style. And also, wasn't there something about being a public space? Like if it's
if you're in a public space, you have absolutely no expectation of privacy. The Supreme Court has already ruled on that. So if you're at an event and you're walking around and somebody's snapping pictures, unless you actually look at them and say, hey, I don't want to be in that picture, that's fine. They can take pictures of anything, everybody, and anybody. And I've had people that have walked by me. We were at Newbie, and there was some lady walking around taking pictures because I'm sure she was documenting it. And I'm now in about 3 or 4 of them, as well as 200 or 300 other people. So you have no expectation sitting out on the field if it's a public space or the feast hall. But if that picture is later modified so that I'm the only person in that picture, or that picture is of a very specific group and they're in a situation where it's not a public picture, and they do have an expectation of privacy, such as we have all of the triple peers of the Kingdom of Glenavon gathered together in a cabin room that's a private cabin, and we're taking a group picture. I'm
How many
thinking probably.
wait. No. We're going to jump in on that one. How many triple peers are there in the kingdom? I'm going to think about that for a second.
Uh, I only know currently. I only know.
I only know
I
of
don't
one.
know.
Give
I
us
only
a
know of one. That's
Okay.
If
Kane.
you're a triple peer,
write the name in the comments.
Mhm.
But point
But-
taken, Carl.
yeah, but
Point
we
taken.
understand if it's a small group and you're not in a setting that is an open public setting,
like,
Because
I would
technically
say
that
like,
could be like a portrait.
like Gulf,
Yeah.
let's say Gulf Wars, you have, you're teaching proprietary information or whatever, your information of your class, of your research. You know, we just don't walk up into the classrooms necessarily and take, you know, we have to get permission to do that. So I think that, yeah, understand completely
Yeah.
what you're saying on that.
And
So,
and when people give handouts that have their talk or their information or anything of it, they are technically releasing that to the public. And yes, they may have a copyright, but they just released it to the public. So if that handout goes out, that does it. But as I said, I wrote a poem. I performed it at King and A&S in 2022 as performance. My poem on the piece of paper at the bottom very plainly says, copyrighted by my legal name and the date. And it also says may not be reproduced without the express written permission of me, because it's my poem. I like my poem. I don't want people copying it, and I don't want it just being thrown around anywhere because it's special. It was written for a special lady, and that's why.
There's a lot to this. There's,
yeah, yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with you, Dot. Is there a program that you use to generate the release codes?
No, because there are too many variables. There are 3 general types of release codes. GA in front of your release code is for use on any SCA.org US media. KA is for any kingdom or local SCA media. So if you have a KA for Glen Aubin, it can't go outside Glen Aubin. So no one can post it on an SCA wide publication without your permission. Again, you'd have to get a new code. And SP is for any release code, whether it's a GA or KA, doesn't matter, that has some special restriction to it, such as you can use this once, or you can publish it 6 times in, what is it?
The
what's
Ambassador.
Ceylon's- Yeah, what's Ceylon's local newsletter? I think it's Sea Tales
Sea
or something.
Lion?
yeah, sea tail,
Wow.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, sea-
Tales,
something
yeah.
like that.
So if you're
Okay.
saying that you can only use it for something specific, and you can also put a time limit on it. Now, most release codes, they're forever until you send me an email that says you don't want it available anymore. I'll mark it as dormant and take it off the list. And somebody that comes in and says, oh, well, I have Dame Dot's permission to publish your personal information, and her release code is whatever the heck, and I go into the list and it's not there, I'll check the dormant list and I'll say, no, she has rescinded that release. You'll have to talk to her about getting a new release code. Can you reactivate it? Yeah, send me an email and I'll reactivate
Right.
it. So,
Right.
but you need to remember that it's not permanent unless you want it to be permanent. So anytime you decide you don't want that code to work again, send me an email, tell me.
And technically, me as a good citizen of Glen Aubin should have my own release codes, correct? Like I should have it in a file someplace, and then I should be able to provide it to the chronicler or to the web minister or,
Yes,
right?
with-
Those are the really only 2 places that need them. Is that correct?
The rule is an SCA official publication. So if it's a Kingdom newsletter, yeah.
Oh,
it's an SCA
or a, I guess local group would
Group.
be an official.
If it's considered if you have to post it in, if you have to put your flyer in your local group in order to have it any good, then yes, it's the local newsletters are official SCA publications. You need release.
I don't know. I'm speechless. It seems like a lot, Carl. You make it seem so easy the way you're talking about all this, but I'm like going, ooh,
Is it-
ah.
Well, because I keep going back to the communications behind the scenes, the chroniclers of the kingdom, the web ministers, because if each group has an official website, then technically they should be doing, it just seems like a can of worms. And poof, those ones, or the nuts that you opened up and the
Yeah.
things bounced out. That's what it seems like. And the further you go, the further I get I just need to write you an
Well, it-
email to get my codes because I'm telling you right now, I don't know
well,
where they
and
are.
jumping back to that, yes, we actually send you an email when we get done with the form and get it into the spreadsheet, issue the number. The office sends an email that says, "Dear so and so, this is your release code. We are sending it to this email which you mentioned in your form because we don't send them to anybody else except the person's email that's on the form. So, we don't send it to significant others. We don't send it to spouses. We don't send it to friends. We don't send it to a web minister or anybody else. It goes to the person that requested it because it's your release code and you have to provide it. I can't just willy-nilly send it out to everybody and their dog, as it were. So yes, you've lost that nice little email. Don't feel bad. You and 1,038 other people have done it too.
Well,
Well, except me, because I have it actually on a Post-it note right here on my console, and I'll have my wife's personal information up there. So we have ours, but yes, if you can't find it, you forgot what it is, you deleted the email. Oh God, please no. Send me an email. I'll send it back to you, and there you go.
yeah, because I know I had to get one, and I know that I got the email, but I haven't thought about the application of who needs it. Like in my head, as some, and that's why I was excited to talk to you. In my head, oh, I've 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 done one, I have one, and that's all it is. The number, I don't want to say is irrelevant, but in my head, it was, well, it's on file. I just have to say, yes, I do. I didn't think about the checking it. I didn't think
Yeah.
about the chronicler having to check to make sure that all of their stuff is checked. And so they have a lot of stuff that they put in the chronicler. I mean, in the
Yeah.
ambassador.
That is a
And
lot of
I'd like to remind everybody that possession in this case is only 10% of the law.
Mhm.
You have to provide the release code. Just because, oh, I'm Carl and I have a personal release code. Great. Nice to know that you have one. What is it?
What is it?
Because
And
I need to know it. Because they're supposed to actually record that someplace that I'm putting this article in this newsletter and I have this release code for that article.
and until that link gets fixed, I'm guessing it's can be kind of,
Just contact me. I'll send you an email. Everything's fine.
Mhm.
Most of the time, it's the person. Dame Dot knows that she's putting something into whatever the local newsletter is. Chronicle says, "What's your creative work release?" And you go, "Dear Baron Carl, what is my creative work release code? Thank you." And I'll sit there and go, "Yep, somebody else who doesn't bother to write them down. Dear Dame Dot, here is your release code." In a
smile,
circle.
smile.
Smile, smile.
But hopefully we'll get that link fixed and then they'll be able to check them but we should still have personal responsibility to get those codes, bottom line.
Yeah. And like I said, if you forget them, I'll send you an email. If you want, I'll list every release code you have. And if it has something special in it, I'll tell you what the special thing was. The ones you really need to pay attention are the SP ones that you've issued, because you may not remember that you said only 3 times in the ambassador, and the ambassador wants to do it 5 times. So
Right.
you need a new release code, or and I'm not going to sit there and be a rules lawyer here. Send me an email that says you're modifying your special release code to allow it to be published 5 times. I'll print it as a PDF. I will make it as an addendum to the file and stick it in the files. And that's the other point that we need to get to is one release code per PDF file, please. The web page very specifically says you cannot stick 3 or 4 of them in the same PDF file. There has to be a separate PDF file for each code. Why? Because they get saved in the Kingdom files in a naming convention that states what that specific file is for. So if you send me a release code for a model, it's going to go in with an MO behind it. So I know it's a model. Personal information, PI. Creative work, CR. Photograph, PH. And we need that. So there you go. Send them one at a time. And that way I can process them one at a time, save them one at a time, and get those emails out ASAP. The only time that it's taken more than 72 hours when extended vacation.
We're gonna
I'll-
take that as the universe telling us that we need to wrap things up, Bear and Carl. So
Well,
we're gonna jump into the finale here.
And I would just like to end with a version of this or that. So what this or that is, I'm going to give you both two options, and you just real quick off the top of your head, pick one of those two options. You don't
Wait,
have to
wait,
explain it.
I had a
Okay.
whole thing prepared about sharing a little bit about myself. I mean, it's 28 paragraphs. We can't do that.
Can you condense it to 3 sentences and go?
Oh, 3 sentences. Okay, I think the most important thing in there is for 30 years or so, I've been known as Ida's husband or Mistress Ida's husband, as in I hear people say, "Who is that?" "Oh, that's Mistress Ida's husband." "Yeah, but what's his name?" Mistress Ida's husband. It took a long time before people started going, "What's his name?" Let me ask. "Hey, dude, what's your name?" "Carl." "His name's Carl." "Well, what are we gonna call him by?" "Mistress Ida's husband."
There
Okay.
you go.
You know, the nice part about that is she's a great cook, and I'm the official taster.
Oh, well, that's sweet. That's sweet.
And I've been that for 43 years. So, you
Well,
know,
congratulations. That's awesome.
so okay, let's go. Pepsi
Right,
or
here
Coke?
we go.
Nope.
We're ready.
Okay. Shoes or slippers?
Shoes.
Shoes,
I would say slippers. Cats or dogs?
dogs.
Dogs.
Cat.
Although my mom made me a cat person because her cat just, you know, said, "Oh, you're my human, Carl."
They do that. And yeah. And the older I get, the more cat person I'm becoming. Texts or phone calls?
Text.
I used to be just strictly phone calls, but everybody texts now. So I'm moving into the, 18th century maybe instead of staying in the 14th.
I'm going text as well. Driver or passenger?
Passenger.
Driver.
Driver.
I'm a control freak. I have to drive.
I get motion sick unless I'm driving. So
Mm,
Apple or Android?
Apple.
I like robots. Oh, phones. Oh, hey, my phone is so old that all it needs is a flip on it and it'll be perfect.
Okay.
I think this is a Galaxy, so that makes it an Android, but
Yeah.
I don't care. I mean,
Well, we're
it's a
okay.
phone.
We're gonna say Android. I'm Android. Summer or winter?
Winter.
Yeah, winter, it's a lot easier to put clothes on than to take your skin off.
I'm gonna go summer. I hate being cold. Asia or Europe? Mhm,
Europe, Europe.
mhm.
Yeah.
I know, but
Asia.
Roz is stuck, huh? What
Asia.
did-
There's a middle part there, that where it kind of meets.
Right?
Asia. I'll go with Asia.
Asia, but on the border.
On the border.
Okay.
Well, I would like to go to Japan, but
Well, you could do a travel. I would have to be Europe.
I was trying to figure out Istanbul. Where does that fall?
Istanbul, not Constantinople. I think that would be Asia. I believe it would be Asia.
I think they would call that the Near East.
There you go.
That's what's
Um,
in the middle.
Yeah. Unicorn or dragon?
Dragon.
Dragon for me.
Unicorn for me.
Okay,
I'm
good.
special. I'm special.
Yeah, you are. Okay, now we're getting to the real nitty gritty. Batman or Superman?
Batman.
Superman. Batman doesn't have any superpowers. I'm sorry.
But that's what makes him special. I'm gonna have to go with Batman, but specifically Michael Keaton Batman. I'm
That
sorry.
is the only Batman that I liked.
I know he was awesome, right? And if you
Yeah.
haven't seen the new Flash, he was the best part, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Spoilers. Okay, and our final question, would you rather have the ability to fly or invisibility?
Invisibility, so I can spy on people.
Is that you too, Roz?
Invisibility.
See, I'm thinking traffic fly.
Sue Storm. Let's go Sue Storm. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, that's my this or that. I hope you enjoyed it. And Baron Carl or Ida's husband, thank you very much for joining us. You've made it as clear, I think, as this brain can handle, but a lot of useful information.
Again, if you have any questions, release.deputy.glenaubin.net. So, have fun. Just email me and I'll answer your questions.
And when will you be taking applications for, have you decided that yet? Can we announce that?
Yes, I was going to get it approved sometime in July to get something in the August, but I need the web minister and the seneschal to look over what I'm going to say the office does, because we don't want to scare everybody. Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't supposed to say that. So yeah, I mean, July was when I was going to start looking for people. And I've actually already had one young lady who has sent me an email and said, "Hey, are you looking for a deputy?" So yeah, her name goes on the list. Anybody else who wants to throw their name in, that's fine. Once I get the job description written and condensed down to 3 sentences, that'll be sometime in November of 20. Never. We'll have a job description going.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Roz, as always, thank you for a lovely time.
Oh, well, and thank you for inviting me. I think this is, as I said, one of the lesser known offices, but people don't realize how important.
No, Baron Carl. Everybody needs to know out there that mad props to Baron Carl for volunteering to come on. I mean, was one of our first Kingdom officers that said to us, "I would like to do this." And I just want to say that meant a lot to me that you were willing to come on camera and talk to and reached out to us that I want to do this. And so I really appreciate that, because again, as Dot has said, this is not an office that a lot of people understand. And so we appreciate you being here with us.
And if you
thank
are
you.
an officer, take Carl's lead and volunteer and contact us so you can be on the next Officers Club.
Yeah,
Bye,
because I
everybody.
noticed there was no other comments after mine.
We won't discuss that. So,
Yes, we will. Come on, people, get off the
Yeah.
duff and get up here.
all right. Well, thank you. And we'll see you next time.
Bye,
Thank you
buddy.
very much. It was a pleasure. I look forward to seeing you all in person. Kingdom A&S.